Gotta kick off the show here.
We're agreeing.
Something cleaned up.
Welcome, man. Bill's Mafia. Welcome to another episode of the Mafia Cast. How's everybody doing tonight?
All right, Ron, how about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right. It's been kind of a hectic last 5 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
There was some concern Mike was going to have to do this all by his little lonesome. I think he could have handled it though.
Yeah. No doubt.
No doubt. Yeah. Piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
John, how you doing?
The best, Ron.
Not bad. How are you guys?
Hanging in there. Another day. One more day closer to the start of the NFL season, and the Buffalo Bills kicking off the 2024 year. Cannot wait for this season to start.
But now it's break time. We really wait now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We are officially in, what do they call it, the dog days of summer or whatever that is. Yeah, not a lot going on. Not OTAs. Minicamp finished up today. Training camp, I believe, I want to say July 26th. Don't quote me on that day, but I know it's late July. At least
24th?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah, mid-20. The good news is, though, we'll have college football 25 available before then. So we've got that to look forward to.
Keep us busy.
Yeah, keep us busy. Let's just jump right into it. The first thing we kind of wanted, we brought this up the last couple of weeks now, and it keeps getting pushed back. So we're going to do this. Defensive tackles, Buffalo Bills history. I put the question out there a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, and the responses I got, I didn't do a poll. Probably should have maybe done a poll, so we actually had some numbers. But I was a little surprised the number of people that mentioned Fred Smerlas. Mike, I know you obviously you didn't watch him play. You weren't alive yet.
Right.
There was a guy who I included on my personal list, though, Tom Seastack, which is even before my time. But just the era in which he played, what he meant to the Bills in that defense back in those days, that to me is why they won those early AFL championships, was because of their defense. Offense had some really good players too, but just on the top, where would you put your defensive tackles all the time? And does Ed Oliver belong in that top 4 or 5?
I mean, we chatted a little about it. Ed Oliver's still making his case, right? So it's kind of hard to just throw him there right now. I like to think of, at the end of his career, look back and reflect, and then make the judgment on that.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think Oliver needs at least a couple more years before he can be included in that, top 3, top 5, in Bill's history. As long as he performs like he has been, over these next 2 years, I think he's going to be right there at the top.
Right. Keep it consistent, right? That's another thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I do agree. I think he does need a little bit more time. I'm fine because the original poll or question that we posted, it did include Ed Oliver as part of a top 5. But then all of the people coming back with the Fred Smerlas conversation, and it does make complete sense. Smerlas was a beast back in I think 79 was his first year with Buffalo, and he went through 89, 90. I think he just missed the playoff or the Super Bowl run. But he was definitely an integral part of kind of getting things rolling a little bit for the Bills in the late 80s, and helped occupy those blocks for guys like Bruce Smith to start to really come on. So I could put him in the top 5 for sure. But who's the number one? Who is the guy at the top that you would put there?
You're asking me or John first?
Either one of you. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I don't know. I've been learning more and more about the history of the Bills, hanging around Ronnie and stuff.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, and you were just talking up Tom Stack, and he was on that list of 5 players you tweeted out. Was it last week? So, I mean, yeah, you got to give it to the guy back in the day that won championships and had freaking 15 and a half sacks one year. I mean, like you said, he was a serious part of that Bills defense and winning them championships.
Yeah, I got to go with Freddie. And I'm probably a little biased just because I got to see him play.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't remember anybody else that came close to him. He was a beast on the field, and if you look at the team around him in those early to mid 80s where we were 2-14, and for him to put up the numbers he did, it says a lot.
Mm. And he was kind of consistent for a long time too, right? You could almost count on him to get a few sacks at least each season or more, 5, 6, something like that. So that's another thing to take into consideration, just the years alone. And it was hard not to think Kyle Williams too was in that group, fresh off his career here, long time.
Yeah. And Kyle Williams is kind of how the whole conversation came up in the first place, because it's something that something to do with him recently. I can't remember what it was, but then it started the conversation on Twitter. So then we just threw it out there. It's hard for me to say who the top guy is, because you've got other guys like Jeff Wright, who was an integral part of the Super Bowl. Of course, Ed Oliver. And then, there's a history of really, really good defensive tackles here with the Bills. But because of the era, a lot of it is that it's a very different game back in the 60s and 70s than what it is now. Much more physical game back then. It's still a physical game today, but it was MMA back then. Let me tell you. It was crazy. So to me, anytime somebody stands out, that's a big thing. The one knock, though, it was the AFL. So the level of talent and caliber of players is not the NFL, and he didn't play in the NFL well, at least early on.
We still
I'd have to go back and look and see what his last year was, but it's crazy when I look at history and I look to see when a player was drafted back in the 60s. A lot of times these guys were drafted both by the AFL and the NFL. And you'll see a guy who's drafted in the AFL was drafted in the 3rd round, 18th overall. Wait, what?
Yeah.
And then they're drafted in the NFL like 100 something overall in the the 2nd round or whatever. Obviously I'm exaggerating to make a point, but so how good could he have been on an NFL roster? We'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is one argument maybe you could put out there for somebody like Fritz Merlis being at the top. I think Ed Oliver is kind of on his way, but I maybe drop him in there at 5, maybe only because he was outstanding last year. But before that, we were kind of like, maybe it's time to cut him loose,
Right.
So we'll have to see. This year, this will be a big year for him.
Mm-hmm. And we see him sort of do it all, recovering fumbles, interceptions, things like that. So very excited. But another thing, the other couple guys you had on the list here, Ted Washington, Sam Adams, guys I watched growing up when I was younger. Very excited to see them on your list. And, guys like Sam Adams returning interceptions for touchdowns and stuff like that. Very, very exciting, games to watch back in the day for me.
Yeah. I was a big fan of, and I almost always say Sam Gash, but that's the fullback, Sam Adams, Ted Washington, Pat Pooh Bear Williams. All 3 of those guys were massive dudes and just completely clogged up the middle of any defense back in those days. And I guess maybe call me old school or whatever, but that's what I want to see. I love Ed Oliver, all 290 pounds of him. I want those big behemoths in the middle of that defensive line that just shove people around. Uh, I've brought that up before, and so here's a question I'm going to throw to you guys, and I'll start with you, John. Do you think that style of defensive player can succeed in today's NFL, and can a defense be built around that type with two 340, 350-pound guys in the middle?
Oh, maybe. You just you got to find that one or two guys that are going to have a little bit of speed, have a little bit of agility, and not just be a brick wall. You know, the NFL is kind of changed to the point where those guys have to be quicker, faster, more athletic, and not just somebody there to plug up a hole.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like the game's just changed a little bit, as it does over the years, right? So, yeah, like those, you don't see D tackles like that anymore, and it has to be, it'll be a specific player, that if it ever comes along, that has the right attributes and athleticism to play the position how it is played these days.
What do you guys think about Marcel Darius?
I mean, he just kind of fell off, right? What happened?
Yeah,
He did.
I mean, seemed very promising, right? At points. I mean, I don't have his stats fresh in my mind or anything like that, but I mean, and then it was kind of disappointing, right? It all kind of just went away.
Yeah, I think there was a big drop off at the end, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was definitely promise early on, and then he just kind of disappeared. So to answer his question, no, he didn't make that top five. But I know that there's people out there that will think differently, because there were people when we posted on Twitter, there were people who said, "Hey, what about Marcel Darius? He should be here." So that just kind of goes to my point, though, that there's a ton of defensive tackles throughout Buffalo's history that could be considered top five. So maybe they're not on my list, but they're on somebody's list for sure. I don't know why Casey's got to bring up Jordan Davis for the Eagles. Oh, big guys. T'Vondre Sweat's the reason why I brought up the size, because that guy was like 360 something pounds.
Right.
And somebody told me that he can't play in the NFL at that weight.
Well,
I mean,
we're going to see, aren't we?
Yeah, because I don't see why not. Because look, you've got guys like Daquan Jones is a good example. His job is not necessarily to get after the quarterback. His job is to occupy blocks, keep the linebackers clean, so Milano Bernard can run around and roam free sideline to sideline. When you got a big fat dude like 260 pounds, good luck moving him. It's going to take two people to try. So right there, you've got two people already occupied. That's going to, again, help keep your linebackers clean. It's going to help keep your edge rushers in one-on-one situations more often than not, because those middle guys are so powerful that one guy isn't going to be able to hold them there, and they're going to get pushed back if not. So Sweat was one of my favorites in the draft. I was kind of hoping he would have came to Buffalo.
Right.
But I'm also excited to see Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver back on the field again together, though.
I want to go back to Roy's comment again on Darius. So if you look at the first 4 years of his career, his sacks went up, 5.5, 7, 10 sacks, So as far as being on your list, I almost feel like if Ed Oliver were just to fall off, right, you could almost put Darius right there now.
Yeah.
He was in the fifth spot I'd say he's in the fifth spot out of the five players we mentioned.
Yeah. You could definitely make an argument for him. Big news out of the NFL today. Just dropped shortly before we're in the show, so we'll talk about that in just a second. Before we do, though, let's hear from John.
Hey, it's John from Game On Sports Memorabilia. Check out our huge selection of unopened wax boxes of Pokemon cards. You have to see our selection of over 2 million sports cards in stock, plus hard-to-find card supplies. And if you have anything to sell, bring it in. We can help you determine the true value before you sell it. We pay fair market value every day. It's Game On Sports Memorabilia, 2670 Dewey Avenue in Greece. Check out our podcast for news and information on the card and collectible universe. Also, check out our Facebook page.
For more, call 481-2153. That's 481-2153.
All right,
Nice,
John,
very
you're
good,
really
very
good. You did really good on that spot there. I
Yeah,
just gotta say.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, it's funny because he went. So the other guy that's in that is Dino K. He's a DJ in Rochester, and
Okay, right.
I had worked with him for a little bit, and he
Mhm.
goes, why don't you go through and cut the commercial? And
Yeah.
he goes, just write down what you want and go for it. He goes, we got all day to go through and do it, and wrote it, read it, and one take, and it was done. So
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you're
nice.
natural.
yeah. I don't know about that. I think I got lucky.
Yeah. Well, don't get surprised. I ask you for some VO work or something sometime.
Right.
Speaking of voiceover work, we will be debuting a new intro here in the next week or two. Kind of working on that and excited to unveil that probably next week. Also next week, while we're on the subject of our next episode, Bruce Nolan is going to join us. Most of Bill's Mafia knows and is very familiar with who that is. So we're super excited to get him on the show next week. Let's talk about this Trevor Lawrence thing because normally I don't. I mean, I pay attention to the whole NFL and I watch what's going on, but to me, this kind of impacts the Dolphins, which obviously impacts the Bills. Tua has not yet signed a new deal, and there's a lot of talk about that, of course. Trevor Lawrence gets his new contract, 5 years, $275 million. So I guess we're paying out the you know what for above average quarterbacks these days. But that's just my opinion. I believe third highest annual pay amongst quarterbacks, or third highest guarantee. Yeah, there it is. Third highest guarantee as a quarterback. He ties him with Joe Burrow at $55 million annually. I'm sorry, Trevor Lawrence is not on Joe Burrow's level. He's not top 5. Maybe he's put him in the top 10, but even that to me is a stretch. What has he done to deserve $275 million? Which leads me to Tua. What has he done to deserve that?
Right.
And you know he's going to get close to that probably.
Right. You thought I thought maybe you'd see the Tua deal first, right? We're all kind of waiting for that.
Yeah.
But if you don't, I mean, basically you're saying above average quarterback, but really, what other options do you have? Like you have to secure them. You know what I mean? They're starting quarterback in the NFL. You know, their confidence level got to be off the charts. You know, if they don't make a certain amount of money, they're gonna, not play as good or want to go somewhere else, or because it is a high demand position after all.
I would say it's the most important position
Right.
too. Yeah. But my goodness, $275 million.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins can do once they pay all that money out to him, because they just gave a huge extension to Jalen Waddle. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Personally, I hope they just break the bank for Tua, because, like I said, we're paying a heck of a lot of money for average quarterbacks these days, and I put him right there in that category. Sorry, Dolphins fans.
He's going into the last year. Is this contract year for him?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I even kind of going, not even just Tua, but the whole Dolphins. We had Matt Perino on a few weeks ago, a month ago. I can't remember exactly when that was. I think it's about a month ago now. And he talked about McDaniels and even Robert Saleh both kind of being on the hot seat, because what have they done really with those rosters and those squads that they have that Sean McDermott hasn't done? They haven't won a division. They've made the playoffs. Both of them wanted to. The Jets, I don't think have made the playoffs under Saleh, right? I think that's accurate. We know McDaniels has, but one and done each time. So I'm excited to see what the AFC East looks like this year and what happens with everybody. I'm excited to see the Bills on the field again. And speaking of the Bills, we talked a little bit about the minicamp concluding today. You guys, are you kind of up to speed on what's been going on with mini camps and hearing some of the reports?
A little bit. I caught up. I caught up a little bit today. I was kind of slacking a little bit, but I had no choice. It is exciting to hear all the news coming out of camp. Hundreds of pictures online. You see Keon Coleman out making catches, Dalton Kincaid making crazy catches. It's just
you know
really
what I find
exciting.
interesting and kind of funny is a lot of the pictures and video, well, a lot of the videos and stuff that we're seeing on social media of Coleman is him high pointing the ball. Like,
Yeah.
like first of all, can Allen throw an on target pass? Secondly, we know he can catch those 50-50 balls. That's why he brought him in. And I'm just kidding about Josh Allen. We know he's going to be just fine.
Just
But
throw it high
it's
near the
almost like they want
sideline.
to. Yeah, it's like they want to make a point to show everybody, look how good he is at going up and getting the ball. And we know, we get it.
to.
But yeah, I'm excited to see that. So some of the things that to kind of follow up on, Matt Milano was a big one. He still isn't a full go, but it's been really good to see him out there on the field and at least participating in some capacity. So
Yeah.
we've talked about this in the past in recent shows. What do you guys think? Matt Milano ready to go for training camp?
All signs point to yes, they're saying. I can't help but worry. He's not 100% right now until I hear he's 100%. Then, and see him playing 100%, and it's kind of hard to.
That's the thing. I want to see him 100% on the field on
so
game day.
If he's not 100%, I mean, at what capacity is he involved in the defense? Because you hear like Terrell Bernard in his recent interview saying how important Milano is just being on the field, and communicating and things like that. So it's kind of like, he's going to be there one way or another. He can't not be, but then it's tough to say, that he's going to be 100%.
Yeah, and my biggest worry with him is that he's going to be on that McDermott pitch count like Vaughn was last year. And I understand not wanting to re-aggravate the injury or put him in a bad spot, but listening to Milano, I think he's going to be ready to go. I just hope that that's the case and he's not going to be held back at all.
Yeah. I mean, you still see him doing individual stuff on the sideline, working out that leg, by itself. So, yeah, still up in the air, but everything's on track, they say. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And he's got to be there, right? He is a very important part.
That's what they keep saying. There is something interesting that came out today. I don't know if it's today, but Josh Allen talking about what he's been doing this offseason. Because, we've all heard people complaining about, why haven't we seen him working out and doing anything? Well, one, he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to post everything on video for the whole world to see. He's not that type of a person. But we do know now that he did spend some time with a company called Biometric that helps map out his throwing motion and a whole lot of scientific stuff behind that. But he admitted to the fact that in 2022, the elbow injury, and then last year he had a little bit of a shoulder injury that affected his throwing motion. So he wanted to go back and get that corrected. It kind of leans to, we talked about this 2 years ago. Like, is there a problem with the elbow? Is he injured? Maybe he should sit a game. Maybe this, maybe that.
Right.
Obviously, we don't. If he'd have done that, we probably would have not made the playoffs. But
yeah, you have to pick and choose the games to do that.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, yeah, for sure. But like he talked about, when the body, its natural mechanism is when something hurts is to compensate for it another way. Even myself, who have never been on a football field outside of high school, I can attest to that, and it happens.
Yeah. It's like you said, running with a cramp. You just can't do it. It locks up. It doesn't move.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool to hear him talk about that and going and kind of getting that cleaned up.
Yeah.
And the other thing and Roy brought it up here in the comments, so we'll kind of talk about that. As I keep hearing Claypool is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know about that, but I'm hearing he has probably looked about as the most consistent on the field. But I believe it was Aaron Quinn over at Cover One brought up a good point. That's hasn't been the issue with him. He's always kind of looked good, especially in the shorts. It's when the pads come on, when it's for real, it's game day, and off the field stuff is when it's kind of been a problem, between the ears kind of thing. So I'm going to hold back my opinion or judgments until we see him actually do something on the field on a game day. But John, what do you think about Claypool? Do you think he has a legitimate shot at making the 53-man roster and contributing significantly and playing a major role?
I think so. And like you had said, I mean, he's got a pattern of looking great this time of year. Once September hits, not so much. I'm just afraid that he will make the cut to 53, and then we're gonna find out what he really is. You know what I mean? I mean, I like him. I mean, he's one of those guys that's got a ton of potential that, has had a ton of potential for the last few years. And, but I mean, he's also low risk, high reward, if he can make the team, if he can be productive on the field, then, great, great job on Bean. But, I mean, I'm holding out hope for him. I just also a little realistic that, he may not produce like we want him to come September.
Yeah. It's almost scary to think that you'd almost waste the roster spot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, speaking of the roster spots, Valquez.
Yeah.
Wait.
Marquez.
Scantling. Why am I messing that up? MVS. Marquez. Valdez Scantling.
There's a
There
lot
we
of
go.
letters there.
Yeah. There's a bunch of letters. From what I've heard, some of the reports on him is he has not looked that good. He's had some drops issues the first couple of days. And I know a lot of people have talked about he's a shoo-in, he's a lock for the 53 because of the money. I will push back on that and say that the money didn't prevent Brandon Beane from getting Ernest Stephon Diggs. So I don't think Beane is too concerned about a couple million for MVS if he's not working out. I didn't like the signing to begin with. I'm not a big MVS fan. I felt like if you can't secure a career and a roster spot on a team with Aaron Rodgers, followed by Patrick Mahomes, the problem is you, and you're just not that good. So I'm not a big fan of his. I know he can stretch the field and everything, but I would much rather have somebody like KJ Hamler, younger, faster, hasn't really had a lot of opportunities because of injuries. I want to see what he's got. And he made some pretty big splash plays over mini camps as well. So where are you guys at with MVS on this as far as the roster and the 53 go?
I mean, I was almost thinking him and Claypool were a lock on this team, but now you're talking me out of it.
I think Claypool makes it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to call that shot now, I think he makes the roster. I don't know that I would put him in like the top 3 or 4 or whatever, but I think he makes the roster. I do think he'll make some plays here and there throughout the season because talent-wise, he might be the most talented on the team right now. I just worry about what's going on upstairs with him. If it's all right and he's on the right path, then the Bills got themselves a steal. But until we see that,
worth a shot though, totally.
Yeah, totally worth a shot. Some of the other names: Tyrell Shavers, Justin Shorter, kind of been struggling. More so, Justin Shorter. The more I hear, the less I think he makes the roster, and he could end up being a full-on cut at the rate that he's going right now. He's one of those guys that, for whatever reason, so many Bills fans are in love with, and we're like, it's Shorter season. Well, no, it's really not. He's struggling. So as far as that goes with Shorter, Tyrell Shavers, 2 bigger guys. Again, how do you guys feel about those 2?
I mean, if you talk about Kamler, but I'd like to see one of those guys if Scantling or Claypool can't make it. If both can't, definitely one of them guys. So we could see the issue too. We've seen it last year at training camp. I think we've seen some drops and stuff as well. So
yeah, I was on the Shorter train up until this week. I'm quickly not becoming a fan of his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John here brings up John Robert listening over in the comments. MVS dead cap is only 900,000. That's nothing compared to the 31 plus that they gave up to get rid of that other receiver. I want to kind of come back to this one. Claypool could be the next McKenzie, fool everybody in minicamp and then crap the bed when the lights go on. Absolutely, that could happen. So there's definitely a lot of intrigue there for me. I'll be looking forward to preseason games, regular season, see where he goes. Like I said, I do think he makes the roster still. Part of that because of the lack of consistency that we're seeing with Shavers and Shorter. And then you've got Mac Hollins, who there's been a lot of talk about his leadership on the field. I think he's more of a lock than any of those groups for sure, or any of those receivers. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of receivers in this roster. I would not be shocked if they keep 7. I think more than likely it's 6. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they go 7. Let's move on because I do want to talk about some defensive backs really quick. Kyrie Elam and DeMar Hamlin, both making plays, both looking like they belong. I've been pulling for Kyrie Elam all summer long, and against a lot of people who think he's a wash. He's a first round bust. He's this, he's that. I'm not ready to throw in the towel, and so far in the training camps or mini camp, he has looked the part, making some plays. With Kyrie, where are you guys at with him? I'll start with John on that one.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of him. And so far so good. Some of them just take a little bit longer to learn and get caught up to speed of the NFL. And I'm really hoping that Elam's one of those guys. And then like with DeMar, I think deep down inside, we all want him to make the team if he can be solid and very productive, just because of the whole story behind it. Unfortunately, he's going to be under a microscope all season long, whether it's with Bills fans or with the media or whatever else, or the haters going through and saying, hey, the only reason we're keeping him is because of, what had happened. But I think both of them are definitely going to be on the team come September.
Yeah. Kyrie Elam definitely a lock. You heard Rasul Douglas said in the press conference that he's seeing a lot of great things from him. McDermott says he's cleaning it up or whatever, and I've always seen that he might miss a play, but then he bounces back. He more than makes up for it with like a pick or like a great pass deflection or something. So like we heard McDermott say, cleaning it up, staying more consistent. You love to hear that stuff, and then to hear from a player that came in mid-season and started doing great things for our defense, give him the props too. I think says a lot about Kyrie Elam. And then Hamlin's just a deeper subject. I've started looking into the 53-man thing, and I'm just it's too early for me to say I got like a list of 16 players and 4 of them can't make the team, or I don't know. So I'll have to put a lot more thought into that one.
Yeah, I think with the safeties, because of the lack of, I don't want to say lack of talent, because there's talent there, but there's not a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a good time for him to make the 53 as a depth piece. But like Roy here, where did it go? No, he's talking about Elam. Never mind. So with Hamlin, somebody mentioned in here that he's had good OTAs and mini camps. I would say not so much last year, because I don't even think he participated last year in the OTAs and mini camps. I can't remember exactly, and if he did, it was very, very minimal. So it's good to see him out there, almost like he's playing full speed again, or at least practicing full speed. Obviously, you're not playing anything yet, and they're not in pads. So again, that's another one for me that I cannot wait to see him on the field comes training camp and preseason games, which crazy enough, we were only like a month and a half away from those first preseason games. And I'm not like a lot of people. I actually enjoy preseason games because that's the opportunity to see some guys that could be the future of the team.
Yeah.
I'm also not one of those who's like, oh my gosh, Duke Williams is amazing. He should be his number one receiver on this roster. Not that guy either. Or who's the running back that everybody fell in love with for preseason? The kid from he was part of the Pathway program, the running back.
Yes, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Christian Wade.
Christian Wade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say Wade.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody just knew he was the next big thing.
I gotta admit, I'm somewhere in between. I'm kind of I get like that a little bit, but I was never really into preseason football. You know, it's hard to when you're younger and you just want to see a real meaningful game with the greatest players. But yeah, definitely, it's all we got. We're excited to see it. We got to see what the new faces are going to do.
Yeah. Let's talk about really quick what Casey said here. After this year, Brandon Bean going to have to make a decision on Elam's fifth-year option. If he barely plays this year as CB3, how can that determination be made? If he's CB3, he's going to get a lot of playing time. Because it's not going to be a case where he's not on the field at all as the number 3 corner. And I'm not counting Taron Johnson in there because he's the nickel corner, so that's a separate piece for me. After Douglas and Benford, Elam is the third guy. So if that's the case, if he does earn that third spot, I don't know, actually, if you think about it, because if they pick up that 5th year, I don't know what the cost is. I'd have to look that up, but it would be significant. And do you want to pay a CB3 starter money, essentially, is what it is.
I mean, we got to see what he does.
Yeah.
So I think he's right. I don't know. Is Casey trying to say you have to play him? Are we like forced to play him, or
no? So we're not forced.
He's saying he's gonna. The comment now, he says he thinks he won't see playing time, so it'll be hard.
But if you're the third, if basically you're the first man on with there's an injury or rotating a player out or whatever, he will play. It's not like he's the number 5 corner. He'll get some time on the field. The question I have, kind of along the lines of what Casey is saying, is will he get enough to warrant picking up that 5th-year option? Because when you pick up a 5th-year option, the cost goes significantly higher, and now you're looking at starter level money, and I don't know if that would be worth it at that point.
Yeah. Well, what's the alternative then?
The alternative is you don't re-sign Douglas, and Kaiir Elam is a starter in the following year, which somebody did bring up here. I believe it was Roy. Yeah, if Elam can show something this season, he could be in line to be a starter next season.
Right. But if you don't give him a 5th-year option, what else can you do besides release him?
Oh, that's it. He becomes a free agent.
Right, yeah.
And I guarantee you, as a first-round pick with his physical skills, somebody will give him money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Somebody out there will be
no doubt.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, yeah. I can fix him.
Mm-hmm. Well, not even that, but, I mean, worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, John says Kaiir is healthy so far, so that's obviously a big thing. And John Robert confirmed for us training camp starts July 24th.
Yeah.
So we're, a month and 10 days-ish away. So looking forward to that. DeMar Hamlin, we kind of talked a little bit about him. This is his final year in his contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting. That'll be interesting because he's another one, kind of like Kaiir Elam. He could potentially earn his way into a starting role because I think Taylor Rapp's only signed. Well, I know I'd have to bring a spot track. I can't remember what Rapp extended for. I can't remember if it was 1 more year or 2. But yeah, Hamlin's another one could potentially move into a starting role maybe in 2025.
Maybe, but Rapp seems to be grasping this defense. I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know he hasn't been here that long, but now, a couple of years, and he's definitely making his spot in there.
Yeah, and I do think that the rookie Cole Bishop takes the other spot, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So, couple of other things they did talk about a little bit from day one of minicamp. There were basically the pass game looked terrible.
Yeah,
drop passes. Allen was off target, but then day 2, they kind of all brought it back together. I don't put a whole lot of stock in what's happening on the field right now. I just want to see the guys out there. I want to see them building that chemistry, working on that timing. I don't expect them to be Super Bowl ready right now because it's crazy to think that they would be. So
It's one day
I'm
at a
looking
time,
forward to it.
1 week at a time. They're
Mhm.
saying just stay safe, stay healthy, right through the break, and we're gonna have to step it up, and it's gonna be go time. We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're getting. Oh, like I said, I cannot wait for the season to start. Because I think this year. I mean, I always look forward to Bills playing, but there's been so much negativity, I guess, so much doubt thrown at this team this summer, even from our own fans, because of all the changes and all the Trey White's gone, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer's gone. We don't know about Hyde still. Stephon Diggs, obviously, Gabe Davis. But I would argue we've gotten younger, faster, maybe not necessarily talent-wise better, but I think cohesively better, which could go a long way.
For sure.
We do, yeah. I'll save some of the more of the questions next week because I would like to kind of pick Bruce Nolan's brain a little bit on the roster and some of his thoughts on that. One thing we want to move into tonight, because we're kind of running out of time, is we talked about this a little bit last week, but the Buffalo Bills Ring of Honor. Somebody brought it up in the comments about whether the new stadium is going to have that or not. I've also heard some rumblings of a Buffalo Bills Hall of Fame that would kind of replace the Ring of Honor.
Something different. Okay.
Yeah. I don't care either way. I really don't care what they want to call it. Either way, it's the same. But it's time to add some new faces to that roster or to that list. Who, John, I'll ask you this one first. Of all the players that you've seen over the years, who needs to be or should be on that Ring of Honor that is not currently?
Kyle Williams.
That was easy.
Give me a hard one.
All right. Name a player from the 80s that should be on the Ring of Honor, but's not.
Oh.
Ronnie's got someone in mind, I think.
Are we talking early 80s or are we going to push it up to Super Bowl era?
Just 80s in general. We'll just go with 80s in general.
I'll go Reggie McKenzie.
Oh, that's a good one. Offensive lineman. I like it. I won't ask Mike to give.
You guys are way better at this than me. So where did we leave off though? We talked. Who was the last induction?
Cookie Gilchrist.
Right. We talked about that last week or the week before.
Which is funny that he's the last one added when he was one of the first Bills players. I believe his first year was 61, I think.
Right. So that doesn't really matter when you played.
No.
Or anything like that.
No. The only prerequisites or requirements, if you will, is you got to be retired from the game and a minimum of 3 years with the team. So, Mike, I was going to ask you this one. So I won't ask you to name a name from the 80s.
Yeah.
But from the 70s, I'm just kidding. In your lifetime, who is not on the Ring of Honor that you think should be, and you can't say Kyle Williams again?
I know. I wanted to. I wanted to. You got those guys we talked about also in the D tackle list, but not. I don't feel like they. I feel like the Wall of Fame. You got to spend a lot of time here. So it's kind of, I don't know, hard to say. But man, you're making me really think. They got to be here for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, why couldn't you put Ted Washington there?
I mean, you could if you wanted to.
Got D tackle in mind. That's really hard, man.
Yeah,
there's so many. I don't know who is. So who's like a recent player that's on there?
It's been a long time. The last
I didn't get a chance to go through all the players, so I gotta.
The most recent one that actually played, his last season was 2001. So it's been a really long time since the team has added anybody of recent stature. And I cannot remember who that was off the top of my head.
Right.
I just had up the list a while ago. I'm going to go back to it. Where'd he go? He's in here. So we've got some announcers that were added.
Yeah.
to the list or to the Ring of Honor.
Honestly, one of the first guys that comes to mind is Fred Jackson.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is definitely a good one. One of my favorites would be Eric Moulds. Probably belongs on the list.
I wasn't sure if he's not on there yet.
No, he is not. In fact, let me read through the list.
That's a very good one.
Yeah, let me go through here as soon as I find Phil Hansen. He's the most recently played player that's been added. His last year was in 2001, so he's the only one on the list that played in the 2000s, actually.
So it's like you got to be 20 years removed.
Well, you don't have to be. Just retire from the game in general, but it's been a long time. So here's the names on the list. Edward Abramowski. I'm probably saying that completely wrong, but he was the Buffalo Bills athletic trainer from 1960 to 1996. Offensive guard Joe DeLamelure. I can't say that one either.
DeLamelure, yep.
There you go. He played 73 to 79. I guess he actually played in 85 as well. So he came back for a year. Albert Dubinion, who's one of my favorites. If you ever get a chance to jump on YouTube and watch some highlights from his era, which was 1960 to 68, watch those. It's hard to see who's who because obviously the video quality is terrible. But you can tell when Dubinion's running with the ball, it looks like everybody else is standing still. He was so fast, so quick. He's somebody I think could play today in the Game Awards played today. He was just watching those highlights is incredible for me. Some other guys, Booker Ederson, Bills defensive back, 62 to 69. I do want to talk about those guys here in just a moment, the defensive backs from those teams. Joe Ferguson, Cookie Gilchrist, Phil Hansen, Kent Hall, Robert James, another defensive back from 69 to 74. Jack Kemp, of course, the AFL Championship leading quarterback. Jim Kelly, we all know who that is. Marv Levy. Patrick McGroder, Buffalo Bills GM from 83 to 85. He was also a big part of bringing football to the Bills back in 1960. Between him and our former owner, why is the name escaping me?
Ralph Wilson.
Thank you. Ralph Wilson. Thank you. In fact, let me just talk about this really quick. It's kind of funny. If you go back and you look at the history, and John, you might know this and know about this, Ralph Wilson was not looking to bring a team to Buffalo at first. His goal, his intent was Florida. And then this guy, Patrick McGroder, was still trying to get it in Buffalo. Things fell apart with the other leagues and everything. So then that's when Wilson came back and McGroder and him kind of teamed up and made things happen for the Bills. But it's kind of an interesting little story if you ever get a chance to do some reading on that. It's pretty neat. Some other guys really quick. Bill Polian built those Super Bowl teams, also built the Colts team with Peyton Manning. Yeah. Van Miller, Bills announcer from 60 to 70, also from 1978 to 2003. Andre Reed, Jim Richer, Bills guard. Lou Saban, Bills head coach, 62 and 65, and also 72 to 76. George Sames, Buffalo Bills DB, 63 to 69. And then, of course, Tom Seastack, who we talked about. Billy Shaw, guard, 1960-61. O.J. Simpson, Fred Smerlis is on this list. Mike Stratton, linebacker, 62 to 71. Bruce Smith, Darryl Talley, Steve Tasker, Thurman Thomas, and, of course, Ralph Wilson Jr. The last one here is the 12th man. John, let me ask you. We talked a little bit about this last week. I want to get your thoughts on the 12th man. Nobody uses 12th man referring to Bills fans. Nope. So what do you think? We start a petition
to be the main reason
Buffalo Bills to change that, remove 12th man from Ring of Honor, and update it to Bills Mafia.
I could see where you were going right away. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd be all for it. It's become who we are now. You ask anybody, that's, our age. Sorry, Mike. Who the 12th man is, and they're going to have to be Bills fans. You ask somebody that's 40 or under, who the Bills Mafia is, and they know.
Yeah.
And
when I hear 12th man, I think Seattle.
Same.
Yeah.
Either Seattle or Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me address Joey's comment here. How old was each and every one of you, when the Bills went to the Super Bowl for 4 years in a row? Because I think there's only one up there that was alive and not a child at that point. I'm
Yeah,
not sure which one of us he's referring
It-
to,
It's either you or me.
no, I
but
think he
John
means
and
there
I
was
both.
one that he was questioning if it
Yeah.
was even there or not, and that's me. And I was born in 1990, so I was way too young to follow what was going on at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, just for those of you listening, I became a fan of the Bills in 1988. Never grew up in Buffalo, never went to Buffalo until 2022. It was my first time actually going to a game and being there. I lived in New Mexico, which is where I grew up. We didn't have any professional teams. I can pick whoever I want. The popular teams around me were the Dallas, the Raiders, mostly a gang affiliation type of thing, though. Broncos, and then the Cardinals. My brother was a Broncos fan. I wanted to do my own thing. The first game I ever watched on TV, first NFL game period, was Bills versus Jets. It was Jim Kelly's first career Monday night game. Buffalo won, I believe it was 37-14, and that was my team from that point on. So,
Rest is history.
yeah, the rest is history. If the Jets had won that game, I don't want to even think about the nightmare that I may have become my life.
Wow.
Not that the Bills have really fared that much better, to be honest.
We almost lost them.
Yeah.
That would have been bad. Tragic.
So Roy here, 27 when the Bills reached their first Super Bowl. So in '88 I was 12. So I guess I was 1990, so 14 when they started going to the Super Bowls. I do vividly remember them though, like it was yesterday. So
I'm sorry.
yeah. Anything else you guys want to add? I know, John, I'll let you kind of talk about this. You've got something coming up next month, I believe, at one of your stores.
I do, but just to circle back around on that 12th man, or on the Wall of Fame, or Bills Hall of
Mhm.
Fame, or whatever they decide to call it or keep it, or whatever. I think an honorable mention should be Fitzpatrick, just because of him being at the playoff game a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, people replace nameplates on their Diggs jerseys, right?
Yep.
I mean, it
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
how much he means to the Mafia. But Casey
Speaking of
commented
which,
too, John Murphy on there. I don't want to leave that out. John Murphy, radio announcer for the Bills that hasn't been around a couple of years, now retired.
yeah,
I'd love to see him on it because I really miss hearing his calls on the radio, man. It was awesome.
Yeah. There was one other name on the Ring of Honor that I intentionally skipped over because I wanted to come back to it, and I almost forgot. So I'm glad that John brought it up. I don't know if I'm saying this last name right, but Bob Kalsu, it's KLSU. He was a Buffalo Bills guard. I would probably be willing to bet 90% of the Bills fans don't know who he is. He played all of 9 games for Buffalo. 9 games. His entire career was 9 games. But he's on the wall because he ended up, I can't remember if he was drafted or how that worked out exactly, but he went to Vietnam and he was killed in action over there in Vietnam. He's the only NFL player that was ever killed in action in Vietnam. So, really cool thing that the Bills did and put him on the Ring of Honor.
I see. Now when I see it, I'll know.
Yep. Now you will know. Yeah, I think we hit everything. Like I said, next week we've got Bruce Nolan coming on. Before we go, John, what's happening at your store?
July 12th in Rochester, 2670 Dewey Avenue. Daryl Talley and Pete Metzelaars will both be there signing autographs from 6 until 7. Talley is $25 per autograph. Metzelaars is $20. If you get one of each, it'd be $40 for the pair. We'll have 8x10s, jerseys, and mini helmets available, or you can bring your own item to get signed.
Yeah, super cool stuff going on there. I know Casey and I are going to make the trip. It's a little longer drive for Ronnie, unfortunately, but we're looking forward to that for sure.
Just a little bit, all the way over here in Idaho. One of these days, I don't know. Maybe I should just start my own Bills thing.
But follow the pages. Make sure everyone follow the pages. Game On in the Mafia Cast. We'll be sharing all that info, especially more and more as the date gets closer. So look forward to seeing that stuff.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Awesome. So don't miss out on that. We're going to get on out of here. You guys got anything else you want to circle back on? Anything else you want to talk about?
I'll leave. I won't be on next week, but I'll leave you guys something to discuss next week. Going back to the Wall of Fame, does Diggs belong up there?
Well, he hasn't retired from the game yet, so no.
True. Well, touche.
Hey,
let's talk about that next week. Let's talk.
I wore his
about
jersey
that,
for Casey and Ronnie tonight. We're trying to make.
We'll
Casey
talk about that
feel
for
good.
sure. Yeah. So, Mike, add that to the list of topics for next week. Does
All right.
Diggs belong on the Wall of Fame?
We'll chat it up.
Whatever they call it. I can never remember. Well, it's the wall, right?
Wall of Fame. Oh, we had it written down here.
Maybe it's the ring. I don't know.
Buffalo Bills Wall of Fame.
Wall of Fame.
Okay.
Ring of Honor. I don't know. It's the same thing. We know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Joey's already putting in his 2 cents. No, he quit on us.
All right. Well, we'll get into that next week, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you all Thursday night next week, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Like, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.